Not long ago, someone asked me to show off my Black Series collection in full, so today I'll be doing that. This is my main Black Series shelf. We'll go shelf by shelf, just covering the gist of everything, and we'll cut into close-ups for some particularly special characters, so let's go. So on the top, we have basically the Age of Rebellion. This is everything in and around the original trilogy to as close as it can be, which obviously means we've got the whole Falcon crew here, as well as a George Lucas. We've got a lot of Imperial characters in the back, and over here it gets into Andor, Rogue One, and Star Wars Rebels. You also may notice my custom Grand Inquisitor in the background there. I bought the head 3D printed off of Etsy, and I'll try and find the shop's name so I can link it here, or at least tell you where to look for it. But that is hand painted myself, and I gotta say I'm pretty proud of the job I did. Now for some particular comments, I always stick with the Medal Ceremony Luke here. I do also have Dagobah Luke, which is where this Yoda comes from, and I have a Snowspeeder Luke in his thick pilot's uniform. But the Medal Ceremony is how Luke dresses in the comics, and I love this look for him. The yellow jacket is gorgeous. And the last thing I'll mention on this shelf, I've talked a lot about how I'm a sucker for romance in just about anything, and so I have all of my favorite couples in pairs. This is obviously recreating the iconic Empire Strikes Back poster, and we'll see some more as we get to lower levels. Starting right here with what I refer to as early sequel era. However, this one is where it starts to get a little out of control because I just have too many figures to be perfectly divided by era, especially because I only have so many shelves. But you can see back here, this isn't really sequel associated. I think of this as just my hive of scum and villainy. You've got all the bounty hunters from the Bridge of the Executor in Empire Strikes Back. You have a couple of Crimson Dawn members there. We've got Ponda Baba and Dr. Evazan in the background. And then up here, that's also the catch-all that I used to catch Shizor. Savage put with Maul just because that felt like it makes sense. And Brutus is another one who there's nowhere else I could put him, so he just kind of slots in here. But now, yes, continuing my couple duos, you've got Luke and Mara making googly eyes at each other across an angry Luke in the background, but I wanted to keep the four Heir to the Empire figures together. And then on our last shelf, it's the catch-all for just different eras of time. I don't have enough sequel or prequel era figures to be worth a full shelf on their own, so they get kind of slotted together here. Hondo I like to have as a sort of bridge because he's both sequel era, being the sequel era version of Hondo, but also he is intrinsically tied to the Clone Wars, so he sort of helps to bridge the gap, as do Cal and Merrin. They're not really prequel era, they're also definitely not sequel era, but they're another one that I don't really have anywhere else, and they fit here, so this is where they go for now. But then we get into the Bad Batch, who, again, a little bit of wiggle room on them, but this is just a good spot where they can all fit together. That being said, there are some gorgeous sequel-era figures in here, although this also has a lot of the awkward first wave ones like Poe Dameron, who, can we please get a reprinted Poe, because Oscar Isaacs is too good-looking to only be represented by that. But eagle-eyed viewers will also notice that Jaina Solo is back here representing with the other Solo children. Another figure who, if I had anything else from the sequel era in Legends, I would probably put her with them, but she is the only one that exists, so here she goes. And then, of course, the prequel era figures. This is, always a very meaty section. I don't collect too many clones, but I like having the commanders. But, I've got a little assortment of clone commanders. I got a couple of Jedi Masters. Working on building out that roster. I want to get, obviously, the new Shaak Ti and Luminara and all the other Masters that I could get from the Council. Ayla and Bly are another couple that I have together because, I don't care if it's non-canon, it's canon to me. And then in the background, we have our Clone Wars villains roster. Cad Bane lurking in the shadows behind Crosshair, Dooku, of course, up front, and a smattering of little problematic nerds in the back. Padme and Anakin don't have any specific origin for this pose, but I intentionally wanted it to kind of evoke Han and Leia. So, they got a similar, staring into each other's eyes. And now I'll point out down here, I do have a small collection of Black Series that don't get on the shelves. Like I said, I have 2 other Lukes. I just don't have the room for excesses like these, but I would love to get a bigger shelf sometime so I can put them out. Zalbar is another case where he would be completely alone if you were actually up there, and I don't want to do that to him, so they stay in here for now. The only really disappointing one is I would love to get Lando out and onto a shelf, because it's a fantastic head sculpt here. And that's it for everyone I have on the shelf, but I do have some Black Series figures elsewhere. You can see right over here, I've got Vader standing on his own. That's where he is all the time. And I've pulled a couple of other figures from elsewhere around the apartment to show them off for a minute. Such as Boba Fett. You know, when you saw the bounty hunters from the Executor, I'm sure you thought that I had just forgotten to include Boba Fett there, but no, he gets a place of honor because I think this is a really gorgeous figure. Even though I'm not the biggest Boba fan in the world, he's usually over right next to my streaming setup. Yord, I have not found a good place for. Finding Acolyte or High Republic figures spots is tough because there's only ever going to be like 6 of them, so it's like I'm not giving that a full bookshelf. Many of you have probably already seen Darth Vader with the cracked mask. That one stays on my bookshelf next to Revenge of the Sith. Darth Plagueis is next to his book as well. This is also a custom head I got on Etsy, and you may notice it's actually unpainted. I've been very lazy about painting it, but in my defense, it looks near perfect as is. I don't want to mess it up. It's already so close to the skin tone that the Ebony Maw figure that his body is had to begin with, so I'm eventually going to get around to that. Grand Admiral Thrawn is also on the bookshelf. I've made him a cameo a little bit. I haven't found a place to put Krennic, but he'll probably honestly just replace the Krennic that's already in the Imperial section of the main shelf, and I'll find somewhere else to put that one. That one may be going into the basket, we'll see. This isn't technically a Black Series figure, it's a die-cast metal, but I love the look of old Luke in the sequels, so I absolutely need to get a figure of him. We got Mr. Smee, we got Osha. Most Acolyte figures, I just wait for them to come on discount. There are only a handful more I'm interested in, and I just picked up a Kelnaka, so he'll be in soon. Captain Rex is one of my all-time favorites. He always gets a place of honor. He may be staying on the desk from now on, because I had him on a shelf before, but he's just so good. He may be a desk figure. And Wedge, I tend to keep next to the X-Wing books, so he's also coming over from the bookshelf. And last, but certainly not least, we have a couple that I keep right above my desk, right in eye line at all times. To start with, we have a dark side and light side Revan. I think that this is a very nice 2 set, so I wanted them to be sort of combined on their own. Over here is going to be my Dave Filoni Trapper Wolf Black Series, which is such a funny idea. I'm so glad that they did it, and I'm thrilled to have him. And this is another one, it's not Black Series, but Indy is close enough to Star Wars. We count him. It's another Lucas property. I also have the box from the Captain Rex that I had. So those are the last few to get into the collection. And so that is absolutely everyone. Like I said, Kelnaka will be joining the collection shortly, but after that, I don't know. We'll see when the next Black Series figure is coming in. They're certainly getting more expensive, so pickups are becoming more and more infrequent, but I'm sure, you know, eventually I'm gonna get Kamir. We all know I'm gonna get Kamir. We'll see who else. Maybe Dash Rendar, maybe. But yeah, that's everybody. I hope you've enjoyed. If any in particular looked cool, or if you want a closer look, let me know. If you have any really cool ones I don't have, feel free to brag. I love to hear it. And yeah, I'll see y'all later.